Hi guys, and welcome to another work week at our Japanese garden escape. For those who are new to the channel, I'm Teresa, and this week we will be pruning the last of our boxwoods and Japanese hollies. They just need a little trim really before the winter. Then I would like to show you how we deal with the massive amount of oak tree leaves we get every year. So we have a lot of leaf blowing and cleaning up to do. And at the end I would also like to show you how we take care of Japanese maples before the winter comes. We have 3 mature oak trees in our garden, which we're very happy about. The oaks, however, they do drop their leaves starting from something like October time all the way through until springtime, so just before until they get the new leaves. Now, if you're looking here on the ground, I'll start walking slowly. You can see how many leaves we get. So, and these aren't even all the leaves yet. So we do this oak leaf cleanup usually on a weekly or bi-weekly basis at the latest. But you see we had some wind the other day, and this is how it looks after a bit of wind. So the pathway is completely covered, smaller plants are covered a bit, and you see walking back there, it's just everywhere. So that's a lot of leaf blowing that we need to do. Now let's keep walking to the area where I will start with boxwood pruning, because this is also the area where we start with the leaf blowing. Walking up here, and also actually what we will do with some of the leaves is build a little hedgehog house for the winter. I'll get to that in a bit. So in this area we use actually only the leaf blower, because here on the gravel you can't really rake it, and the leaf blower is a very effective and fast way to get all the leaves into one place. And here you can see the boxwoods in the background there, and I will be starting on those with a light trim, and then we'll start leaf blowing from all the way back there from the corner and all the way to the other end. So I'm gonna be starting with this boxwood here. I use the shears to just do a light trim on this, and once this is done and the other one's back there, then we can start the cleanup. So that was the last one in this area, and now let's get ready to blow all the leaves. So guys, about half the area is done. Looking behind me, that's all neat and tidy for now. And you can also, you saw on the footage when I was cleaning or blowing over this pond, and we did, I think it was the first episode of the weekly work videos where we put this net over the pond, and this is exactly the reason why we did that, because we get so many oak leaves falling in this area. And as you can see, it works really well. Only a couple of leaves go through, a few little twigs, but the rest really stays out of it, which is fantastic. Now what I'm going to be doing, I'm using our second leaf blower, and I changed it over to the hoovering function. So because we have, you can see, quite a pile here, I'm going to hoover that pile up, and that saves us, you know, blowing huge piles down to the very end. Also, before I get started with this, I wanted to show you, so we have 3 oak trees along the pathway that leads to the house, and if you're looking up, you can see how many leaves there are still to come. So it's just one of many cleanup jobs we're doing. Just one of the huge piles that built throughout the season. Now you can see this is bigger than normal, but so we're finished blowing, and now I will take some of those leaves and put them at some of the trees we have here to make some habitat for some hedgehogs over the winter. So what I'm gonna do here, you see here we have a little recess here, and sometimes occasionally in winter we find a hedgehog sitting in there, and so this is why we just put some leaves on there. So. And these leaves we're gonna leave over the winter, and maybe if a hedgehog wants to sleep here over the winter, they can. And I'll build a second one on the tree right there. This area we have 4 boxwoods, and I'll just give them a very light trim before the winter comes, so just that they look a bit nicer. Because this area is already cleaned up, I don't want to make mess again, so I'll be using a plastic that I put around on the ground before I start cutting. The last job for this week is to clean off any maples that still have dried leaves on. And I'm especially talking about maples like this one here. This is the fernleaf maple, and because of the larger leaf size, the dried leaves, even though the maple has dropped them off already, but they get easily stuck on the existing branch structure. So on trees like this one, I clean the leaves off in the autumn. And this is very important because otherwise everything gets wet during this November kind of weather, and the leaves, they start to rot on the maple tree and could potentially cause diseases. So this is one type I want to show you, and the other type for the clean off I want to show you is this one here. These are the dissectum type maples, and on these maples especially you can see on this one that the leaves are all dry and actually not attached at all anymore. It's just because the branch structure is the way it is. That the leaves just get stuck on the maple and do not drop to the ground naturally like they would do on upright growing maples. And so especially for these, it's important to clean these leaves off and have a clean tree during the winter. So on this fernleaf maple, it's fairly easy. There are a few leaves that get stuck in the branch structure, and I just pull them out carefully and drop them to the ground for now. The bottom bit I'm not taking care of today. I will do this another day. And also important to consider is when doing this on maples, as soon as they go dormant at that time of the year, the branches are quite brittle. I find the Japanese maples anyway have very brittle branches, but it happens easily when cleaning them off in autumn time that you walk too close to a branch and it can actually break. So I'm always very careful when doing that and try to stay away as much as possible. Also, what I do whilst cleaning off the leaves is to check for any dead branches, and this is also usually part of the maple autumn cleanup, that we cut any dead branches. I do not do any pruning in autumn or winter on Japanese maples, but dead branches are easy to cut away at that time of the year without the leaves, because you can easily see them. So on this one here, I see one there. So depending on how thick the dry branch is, I just use the shears, or for thicker ones I may use the secateurs. You see they're just little bits. Also here I make sure there is a clean cut and no stump is left. And so this is how we go through all maples. I mean, they usually will develop more dead branches over the winter anyway, so this is something that should be checked again in spring, ideally before they get new leaves, so it's easy to see, because once they are full with leaves in summer, it's really hard to find the dead ones. So and this is what I'm going to be doing on this maple before going to the next one. This one here is a larger dried branch, and for this one here I use my secateurs to cut this one off. And then we got a few more leaves here, and then we're pretty much done with this maple. So this one is done. The seed pods, this one has quite a lot. I usually leave those on over the winter and clean them off in springtime. Sometimes they fall off naturally anyway over time. Now next I want to show you is the dissector maple here. So with dissector maples is where most leaves stay on there. And what I usually do, again, working very carefully so that I don't break any branches, I just go in with my fingers like this and just carefully pull them off and just drop them on the ground. Also here the ground I will clean another time. And this I find is the best way to clean off these types of maples. and it's a perfect time doing it now. You can see a few days later it is, and the weather has changed to the typical November weather. So it's foggy and overcast, and we got sometimes this like a drizzling rain. And before all this gets too wet on the tree, this is now perfect to clean all this. So now the cleanup is done, and next I would like to show you all the dried branches on this dissector maple. I find especially with dissector maples, once they drop their leaves, you can find a lot of dried thinner branches. That's because of the growing habit of the dissectums, because they usually grow in this cascading or dome kind of shape, and so typically branches underneath, they will build new shoots at the beginning of the season, but then because not enough light is coming in, so many of them die off again, which is normal. And you can clearly see on this one here, for example, this is just a dormant branch, this one here, so it's slightly yellowish greenish, or this one here, and here you can see this is the color of a dried branch, so you can easily distinguish between what is dead and what is still alive. You can also see here some smaller ones. This one is a dried one, for example, this one here as well, as opposed to just a dormant one at the moment. And especially for the dissectum type of maples, it's I find the only way, or the best way, to clean them off after the leaves have been cleaned off, because you can clearly see where all the dead branches are and you can access them quite easily. When this maple has leaves in summer, this is really difficult to see, so on these I only do it when I clean them off in autumn time. And again here, depending on the size of the branch, this one I just showed is actually a thicker one, so I'm using my secateurs, and you see it has dried all the way back to here. So I'm just doing a clean cut and pull this one out. And then smaller ones like these, I cut with shears, because they're very thin, just like so. And you can, dried branches, you can actually break them off. However, I don't like doing it, because I find that, especially if they have just dried recently, that breaking off is not always a clean cut, so to say, or a clean break off. So sometimes it happens that a little bit of the actual dormant branch may get damaged, and this is why I never break the dried branches off. This is why I always cut them off. Right, so I'll keep going that way until I'm done with this maple. That's going to take a little while, and then actually, because we have a rain forecast for tomorrow, I'll move on to the other dissector maples and clean them off in the same way as I showed you, and clean also out the dead branches. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and see you next time. Bye!